I hereby declare the Candioi County Board of Commissioners is now in session. Will you all please stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome, and also welcome to those people that may be streaming it or watching this later on YouTube. It is November 2nd, 2021, and our first items on our agenda is something we're used to dealing with every board meeting, is the approval of the paying the bills.
I'd move on to bills, Mr. Chair.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Endek and seconded by Commissioner Nissen. Any questions or comments? None, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Now, the next item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting.
I will move the minutes.
A motion to move on the minutes by Commissioner Nissen and a second by Commissioner
I'll second.
Anderson. Okay.
Edgewise.
Any questions or comments or additions to the minutes? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Opposed,
same sign. Pass unanimously. Now I would like to call on Candioi County Sheriff, Mr. Holeen. You have a couple items for us this morning, I see, or 3 items.
That is correct. Got 3 items this
Good
morning.
morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First one that we're going to take a look at and discuss here is going to be the contract for services from Mission Critical Partners. As some of you remember, as we've come together for some of the updates as far as what's going on and how COVID has affected different departments within Candioi County. You remember me talking about statutory requirements that are kind of changing for law enforcement. So on these first 2, when you look at Mission Critical's partners as well as the Woodland Center's agreement, this is being affected by state statute. And also, since it's the large dollar amounts initially that we were looking at, I ended up bringing it to before the county board for your approval to proceed with it. Originally, when we were looking at Mission Critical Concepts, it was about $150,000 is what, or $150 for the services, and then it was $25,000 for getting stuff installed and upgraded. And all of this, they ended up dropping it down to ends up being $90,000, and that's going to be over a 5-year period. Now, just giving you an idea, what is it? So when we look at continuity of care, especially for our medical facilities, when we look at inmates, a lot of times the stuff that our jail staff ends up doing is very labor intensive as far as just getting the waivers and some of the paperwork put together that is needed to get the health information that we need on our inmates. So what they're going to do is they're going to be working with men as well as our correctional staff to ensure that they create a data link that allows us to get into the Minnesota healthcare systems and get this information without having all these labor-intensive side of things where we're trying to get all the paperwork, which will better provide better services medically for our inmates while at our facility. So as you recall, not only do we have men, but we also have dental there. And then if we proceed with the Woodlands project as well, then you have your mental health side of things. So as a requirement that's kind of coming out of the state due to the legislative body passing some of the rules and regulations on us, we're having to do or continue that planning for when that inmate leaves our facility. So they would be critical in being a key portion of this. As of right now, there is no other entity in the state of Minnesota that has proceeded with it yet. Although if you look at Iowa is a state that did it statewide. And they're working with Mission Critical Concepts to do this. With that, so just so you understand kind of what it is, it's that admission, discharge, transfer of information, and it also ends up being the continuity of care thereafter. It's a 5-year agreement for a total sum of $90,000. So it'd be $1,500 a month is what we're looking at. Now, with that being said, it does not affect the budget currently. With that, if you look at in the sundry side of things, so in the sheriff's office, we have what's called the sundry for the jail. We have $419,000 in carryover on that right now. And with that, we also take in roughly or create $18,341 a month that goes into that sundry fund. So we plan on taking that $1,500 out of that sundry fund. The sundry can only be used for anything that betterments the life of the inmate. So that's why it's very difficult sometimes to find ways to spend that money. But with that being there, we plan on using that money for these programs.
Sheriff, for the public, could you tell them what the sundry fund is? How is it coming?
Okay, when you look at the sundry fund, that is created from different sources of revenue from inside the jail. So the texters that we have in there that allows them to text. So the video conferencing, the kiosks and things that we have there. So people will put money onto those cards for those inmates, and then we get a portion of that money back through those services. So that's how that sundry fund is developed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I ask?
Yep.
That's also like, you also have like vending machines?
Yep, and vending machines as
so-
well. Yes, you are correct, Commissioner Anderson.
Any other questions, comments? Or the entertain a motion?
Yep. If I could just get a motion for the total lump sum of $90,000 over 5 years, or $1,500 a month for 5 years.
Okay.
One other comment before we make it.
Kleindl.
You know, this is probably this is a good thing, I think, for our inmates coming and going. Is one of the things we want to try to do is slow down that revolving door, and those individuals who are struggling with mental health issues or medication issues, hopefully we get them the support they need when they're leaving the jail, and they can get hooked up with the services they need and have that follow through. Hopefully we can slowly start turning the trend here a little bit. It's going to take time. It didn't happen overnight. It's going to, you know, those of people who come in 5, 10 years will see the results, I believe.
Commissioner Nemdak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Am I to understand that we would be the first county doing this? You said
Yes.
all of Iowa does it
Probably
by
the
state.
only counties that probably have something in place like this already is someone who's working directly with a medical facility already, i.e. Centra Care, Correctional Care. That would probably be one of the only facilities that would have it otherwise.
Seems like a reasonable fee to accomplish this, so
Yeah.
I would support it by moving on this contract.
Motion by Commissioner Nemdak and a second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner. Any further discussion or comments? Other than policing has really changed over the years, and this is a very positive direction to go, I believe,
Yes.
with all the changes that have taken place. So, no more questions or comments. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Please proceed.
All right. Now, the second one is going to be for the jail mental health services agreement. So to give you a little bit of history on the mental health side of things. At first, when we started looking at some of the issues that were occurring inside correctional facilities, we looked at a lot of the drug problem. So we have done, if you look at the different departments within Kansas County, we've gone to other entities and looked at just the drug treatment programs that they had. And then ultimately it came down to the direction of the mental health side of things. So one of the things that we were able to do when looking at the mental health and talking with Ashley Chose at Woodland Centers is an agreement that was going to work for what is going to be required of us statutorily. And then the other side of it, when we started looking at the services that she or their entities could provide, was going to be better than what we could do outside of that. So when we look at the therapist care, as well as skills worker program, and then they would also provide us a care coordinator and therapist on-call services. One of the things that we did do or are willing to do is we would cancel these services that we currently have with men for the mental health side of things. We will still keep them for the medical side of it. Some of the issues that we were having with men was we were told originally that it was going to be on-site services for your mental health. And then a lot of it went to telemed. And over time, we're simply just not getting the service because they're short-staffed. And they have grown so quickly that they weren't able to provide the services that they said they would. So with that being said, so what Woodland Centers came up with was 8 hours of therapist work, 16 hours of skills working type stuff, and then 10 hours a week of care coordination. and then plus the therapist on call. So when you look at some of these services that they're willing to provide or able to provide, yes, the dollar amount again looks large initially. So it's $100,352.68 annually or over the year, and for a total amount of $8,362.72 monthly. Again, this is a program that we can use the carryover funds from the sundry as well as the continued sundry funds that are coming in, and that's what we're prepared to do as well. Again, so it does not affect the levies or any of our projected expenses.
Commissioner Emdek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we were paying MEND for these services, correct?
Correct.
So will we be paying them less to help offset some of
Yeah.
these costs? And what is that offset or?
That is correct. We will be paying less. I can't tell you that exact dollar amount off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nissen.
I would like to make a motion that we accept this agreement with Woodland Centers.
I'll
Motion by
second
Commissioner
that.
Nissen and a second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have
Commissioner Emdek.
another question. So the contract runs for 1 year.
For 1 year.
I understand it. Will there be like a 6-month evaluation so that we don't go through a year only to find out that, and I'm confident we will get the service. I mean, it's local, but with MEND, you're telling me we did.
That is correct. And if you look at the contract, inside the contract, there's also some clauses in there. If they can't provide the services that they say that they will, we won't be charged for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Administrator Kleindall.
Sheriff, so every inmate will be screened for mental health, or is
Yes.
it self-questionnaire or is it personal screening?
Yes, so when you look at what happens, every inmate that comes in, there is a medical assessment that is done, and that is done within the first 24 hours. So with that, and where this becomes very huge, if you look at the remodeling project that we did currently, so we added extra holding tanks for the mental health as well as the drug-induced individuals. When we look at Woodland Centers and what they're providing, it's not just mental health. It's going to be mental health plus your drug and alcohol side of things. And they'll do the assessments, and then they will communicate with MEND. And MEND, so if there's anything that's medical, MEND will still take care of that, but they will work in conjunction with each other. There'll be that crossover of services a little bit.
Commissioner Nissen.
Yep. I will tell you, and I'm sure you're aware of it, that Woodland Centers faces the same kind of staffing issues that everyone seems to be facing these days. And I know they're working hard and to fill those positions, and they've offered more money than they were paying to get those folks. So I think they'll be a valuable tool for you. But there is that element that's hanging over every employer's head these days, and hopefully we can get that resolved soon.
Mr. Emdek, you had another
I
question?
was just gonna say, so we're doing the evaluation and treatment for mental health and the incoming assessments through Woodland Centers
Through
as we
Woodland
move forward.
Centers. That is correct. Now, when you look at why we chose Woodland Centers, if you look at our local inmate population, that continuity of care. So most individuals are going to continue in this community, and their care coordinator will work so that once they leave here, they're immediately right into a system, one way, shape, or form, whether it's them or someone else.
Thank you. It seems like a better fit for Woodland Centers than it was for MEND.
Yes. If you look at men's mental health side of things, they only take care of them while in the facility. After that, they're on their own.
I believe we got a motion and a second.
Yes, you do.
Okay, at this point, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
And on that one, Mr. Chair, I will need your signature on that one. So I'll bring that one up to you at the end. If that works. Last one's going to be the TZD, Towards Zero Death Enforcement. So Kansas County was awarded $43,300 for the enforcement of impaired driving, seatbelt violations, speed, move over enforcement, and distracted enforcement, as well as pedestrian crossings enforcement. So looking for a motion to accept the grant for $44,300 for that enforcement.
questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion
I'll move on the acceptance of the grant.
for the grant. Motion by Commissioner Gardner and a second by
I'll second that.
Commissioner Anderson. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah,
Commissioner Amdak.
thank you, Mr. Chair. It says acceptance of 44,300. It is down by 55,000 or from 55,000?
It went down $55,000. So part of that was, and just so you fully understand, back in the day, we used to do TZD with entities from Swift County, Meeker County, as well. So we were kind of the fiscal host for that grant. What we found out over time is with shortage of staff, things like that, those counties had a tough time providing the services that they initially said that they would during the grant. So we chose to go with just Candy County, Wilmer PD, and Atwater PD.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Well, thank you very much for bringing these items to us.
Be nice to hear a report in the middle of the year, next year, and
Yes.
get an update on these. These are very positive.
I've got my staff right now working on those reports, so I'll be more than happy to bring it in when they're complete.
It's really important for our community to be aware of what the changes that are taking place, and I'm feeling very proud of, and the board does, of our sheriff's department, so thank you.
Thank you.
Got a million papers here to sign, but first off, I better move on with the agenda. Okay. And Mr. Kleindall.
Mr. Chair, board members, members of the public, I'm here to talk about the Middle Fork Coal River Watershed Manager position that I spoke at the last board meeting. We did advertise, do a legal advertisement in the paper, looking for reappointment to this position. That's a management position for the Middle Fork Coal River Watershed District. We followed what we were supposed to do regarding posting and advertising for this position. The deadline was October 29th at 4:30. We received no applicants at this time.
Really?
So I would ask that I have permission again to repost this position and bring it back at the next board meeting. If you know of anybody who is in the Middle Fork Coal River area, encourage them to apply. And they can talk to Scott, the new director at Middle Fork, if they have questions about the meetings and process, or Commissioner Emdike maybe explain it to them as well if they have any questions. But would ask permission to repost this position.
Okay, the board chair will make that motion to repost it. Do you have a second?
I'll second
by
it.
Commissioner Nissen, and thank you for bringing this forward. And this kind of goes back to your statement before about finding employees and qualified people. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kleindall.
So Roger, I may call on you if they call details about this.
Okay.
I'm sure you will.
At this point, I'd like to call on Public Works Director Mel Odens. Good morning, Mel.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. I've got two action items for you. One is a consideration of a memorandum of understanding between the property owners and the county. And the second one is a resolution between the county and would authorize me to sign any paperwork for the DNR. So there's two actions. So this is in conjunction with the Old Mill Inn and the replacement of the raceway. And we've been working hard with the property owners out in the Old Mill area, and and their attorneys, and Shane Baker, our attorney. And we've drafted an MOU, and I would like to do the MOU first, or consider the MOU, because if the MOU isn't executed, then the rest of it would be a moot point as well. So I did hand out.
Do we want to put the overhead up or not?
I don't think we need it, Larry. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I did hand out an updated version at your spot. It's dated November 2nd. And the memorandum of understanding basically would be the guide to how we all understand it from a county board standpoint, from a condominium association standpoint, and from the Old Mill Holdings standpoint. So if this would be the overall guide, and then there's other instruments that will take place, like conveyance, plats, design. There's a lot of instruments that happen. So with that being said, I'm going to direct your attention to the second page under the owner's responsibilities. So basically, we've got two things. We got the owner, we've agreed to, and then down below, we have what the county agreed to do, if the owners agreed to do their part. So the owners are willing to give us a 70-foot wide fee title property from our County Road 30 down to Green Lake, and that will allow for the construction of the raceway. And then 2, 3, and 4 basically just says they need to remove all their private property. They can't put back private property on our land because we own it. And then the last one is that the Old Mill Holdings would hook up to our sewer and water, the Green Lake Sewer and Water District. Okay, so that's what they commit to do. What do we commit to do? We would secure the fee title at no cost. We would provide the survey, all the documents. We would hire the consultant. We'd get the permits from the DNR. We would pay for the design, construction, and then we would clean up the site to match the existing ground. So that's the overarching part of the MOU. Is there any questions on that?
Questions from anybody? Guess not.
All right, so with that being said, we would sign it and they would sign it. So my recommendation would be to authorize the county board chair and auditor to sign on behalf of the county.
Mr. Chair, I would move on the MOU for the, between Old Mill Holdings along with Old Mill Village condominiums and the county.
A motion by Commissioner Emdek to approve the MOU, as we just stated, a second by Commissioner Gardner. Any further questions or comments? You've been presenting this and talking about this for a few times now, and now you got into the details of it, and they look very positive.
Yep. So
I'll go ahead and-
we'll do the resolution, and then I can maybe give you an update on next steps.
Okay, I'll call for the vote then at this point. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Please
So
proceed.
the second piece to this is the resolution. And actually what the resolution, it's a requirement to sign and execute a grant agreement. We don't have a grant agreement, but I wanted to bring the resolution forward today so that we all understood that when we get the grant agreement, Larry and I can keep this moving because we've only got 3 more county board meetings. And so if all the documents are executed, when we get the money, we can just execute the document. So with that being said, this is the part that's between the county and the DNR. They require a resolution to sign grant agreements. And so it basically just says that we pledged, we're fiscally sound, we have the matching funds, and we will do it by all letter of the law. So my recommendation is to authorize the chair and the auditor to sign on behalf of the county. And that would allow me to sign the grant, execute the grant agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'd also move on resolution 2021-42.
I'll second that.
A motion by Commissioner Emdek and a second by Commissioner Nissen. Any further questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Pardon me?
I have a quick follow-up.
Please proceed.
So what would be the earliest we would probably be working on? We should be able to do this start of next fall or even this winter yet? Start the work, assuming.
Well, we're hoping that right away in the spring. We're not going to stop. If that's the question. I mean, as soon as we can get it construction started, we will.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Not? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay,
Pass unanimously.
so yeah, thank you. So the next steps is we'll fill out the funding application and execute the grant. So that's something that, but the county board actually, the one thing that the county board will probably see, there's going to be a conveyance instrument for the land that we'll need to bring back. So there's probably one more time, and that's drafted between the condominium association and the Old Mill Holdings, just to make sure that when the deed gets filed, there's a conveyance document that recognizes everything we did that goes along with it. So there's one more action in a future date.
Okay, thank you for the warning, and there's a lot of details, put things together like this, but you're making great progress. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'd like to call on the Chief Deputy Auditor Treasurer, Tom Odens.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Tom Odens from the Auditor Treasurer's Office, and I come today with 3 action items actually for forfeited lands in Candy, Ohio County. These lands were forfeited in 2020. The first, I'd request that we set a date of a public sale in our office at 400 Benson Avenue on December 16th at 9 a.m., and that's described on Form 449A in your packet.
Any questions or comments from anybody? If not, I'd entertain a motion to.
Maybe you want to explain what that means for the newer commissioners when you put that on for sale.
Yes, great question. So these parcels of land, and there are actually only 2 of them in the 2020 that were forfeited to the state. So these were forfeited to the state for non-payment of taxes, and they were delinquent for 3 consecutive years. So then they forfeited the state actually last year due to COVID and other circumstances. We were not able to hold a public sale. So these will be held at a public auction. So anybody can come in and buy them. It is buyer beware. So they have to do their own research on the properties. So ultimate goal would be to get these parcels of land back on the tax rolls. So there's a lot in New London and Peaceful Hills, and there's also a lot in Main Street and Blomkist.
So,
Commissioner, proceed.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Odens, what is our role in these, ours meaning individual commissioners in these forfeited lands?
So actually, for these particular lands, your role is actually kind of complete. There was an appraisal and a classification that came before the board last year, 2020. So that's where the appraised value that was done by our county assessor, and then the county board also accepted the value of those lands last year. So then now the handbook states that the board has to set a sale date and approve, and the next 2 items are approve the lands to be sold, as well as a resolution for the price and the terms of the sale.
So in the past, I've been involved in appraising some of the parcels. We've already done that
Correct.
last year, and it's just slipped my mind because of.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you
that's
very
correct.
much.
Yep.
So, no more questions or comments at this point? We're looking for a motion to approve December 16th, 2021 as
Correct. Yep.
the date for the public.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. I have a motion from Commissioner Nissen, and I have a second from
I'll second.
Commissioner Anderson. No further comments or questions. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
All right.
Please proceed.
So the second item here is actually the resolution that is also required for us to be voted on by the county board to fixing the terms of the sale. So they may be sold as terms as follows. They can pay cash for it. You can also buy it for contract for deed. And it kind of describes there are dollar thresholds that must be met within those. So this is just that we will also publish this resolution in the paper and at our building for the terms of the sale to be held.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move approval of Resolution 2021-41.
Motion by Commissioner Gardner to approve the resolution.
I'll second that.
A second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further questions or comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
All right. And so the last thing is kind of seems redundant here. We're saying the same parcel descriptions
That's
3
okay.
times here.
That's all right.
But we have to formally file with the county auditor treasurer the lands to be sold at auction. So we've set the sale date, we've determined the price, the agreements, and now we are actually putting parcels of land up for sale, which will be on our December 16th sale. So those are the two, as mentioned before, one in Peaceful Hills and then a lot in the city of Blomkist.
Okay, so how do we phrase this motion then?
Just to accept and file with the county auditor treasurer the list of lands to be sold at auction.
Do a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Anderson and a second by
Second.
Commissioner Gardner. Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Endek.
Yes, in the event that these do not sell, then do they just sit there until somebody does come forward, or can we lower the prices to encourage the sale? How does that work?
No, that's a good question. So actually, that is what, if they do not sell at this public auction, and it must be the minimum bid or higher, they will go into our inventory, and you can come to our office and buy them over the counter with the applicable fees. There's a filing fee and a state deed fee. Or we could, there are some in our inventory right now that are unsold. We could bring them before the board to be reappraised, maybe at a lower value to
Try to get it.
perhaps induce a sale. Yeah. So that is something we could be looking forward to in the future. But
Thank you.
So at this point, we got a motion and a second.
Yes, you do.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for walking us through this. We're very well presented, Tom.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Endek.
just so about, gosh, it must be 7 years ago, we had lots available in the, is it Westland, Mark? The area north across County Road 40 from Rambo, sat there for a lot of years at an appraised price.
Ready.
And they finally got sold within about the last 18 months maybe. And apartments and or houses are being built on them as we speak. So, and they were good values. The buyer, made out well on those. But, so our appraisals have usually been fair, but sometimes I remember another piece of two parcels that were along the Nest Lake, between Nest Lake and our county road, New London Township, 153rd, I think it's called. There's just nothing you could do with them. You could not, all you could do is walk off the road and fish, and you could have done that anyway if you wanted to. So they just ended up being, I don't know, I suppose they're own part of our right of way now. We still own them, but I doubt we'll ever sell them. Just, they're worthless.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're coming near the end of the agenda. We had a short agenda today, and that's just fine. We've had some challenging agendas for this whole past 18 months, I believe. At this point, I'd like to call on Administrator Kleindahl and any administrative updates for us.
Yes, I've been asked by Emergency Manager Stephanie Felt to ask your thoughts on providing a training for elected officials next year regarding Homeland Security, Emergency Management. Joe Kelly would come out and provide training to elected officials. It would be a 4-hour training each time. It'd be 4 different classes. Recommending the training would be from 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. and then 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So you'd have an opportunity for some training. The purpose of this course is to introduce senior officials to the important role they play in emergency management, the responsibility for preparing for responding to and recovering from incidents both of natural and man-made disasters. And it begins at your level, local level, with individuals and public officials in the county, cities, and towns affected by this incident. This course includes 4 ongoing modules. Each module takes between 2 and 2.5 hours to complete, and would be scheduled on a community-based need. Her plan would be to invite other small towns and city officials to attend this as well. So if they haven't had training for a while, they might find out if there was a disaster in Atwater or Blomkist or Lake Lillian, what would their role be, and how does that impact you as a county? So the first part of the class would be your role and responsibilities. You'd review the senior official role and responsibilities in emergency disasters. Then you'd look at state and federal disaster assistance. You'd learn how and discuss the legal framework for disaster relief and introduce hazard mitigation. Then you'd learn, the third class would be on communication with the public. You'd be, get some training regarding the concept of communicating with the public before, during, and after disaster. So how do you keep the public informed in what we do? And then the final part, the wrap-up, would be bringing all the lessons you learned together and review the different scenarios and have discussion. The recommendation, and this is what I want to bring to you, she's recommending that we'd have it the second Tuesday of each month, starting in February of 2022, and do it over a 4-month period. Would have alternate dates in case of inclement weather. And like I said, each day would be from, would be 2 to 4:30, or if this, a second option would be from 6 to 8:30. So how do you feel about that? It would be voluntary. You wouldn't have to attend, but you could, it'd be open, and I would suggest at least some of you attend. Or all you could attend. But, and it's a series of, if you start it, it'd be beneficial if you could get through all 4 of them, but if something came up, at least some training's better than nothing. What's your thoughts on that?
So you want feedback?
Just feedback, and
Either
no
the-
emotion. No, what do you feel about the training? Would you be willing, you think it's something that you'd want to participate in? And then the timeline, is that workable?
Mr. Emdek, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just want to make sure that I'm understanding.
Sure.
So this is a series of 4 classes at
4 classes.
4 hours each.
2.5, 2 to 2.5. It's
I thought I
2
heard you
o'clock,
say
one
there's
class.
an afternoon session, an evening
Because
session.
so if you can't make an
4
af-
different time.
Right, but if you can't make an afternoon session, but you can make an evening session?
Oh, it's the same thing.
Same
I
class,
got
I'm
it.
sorry.
So they'll be given twice then? on
There'll be,
first-
yes. So if you can't make it, you
Board
could,
meeting.
right.
So total.
The second, it'd be on the second Tuesday of each month, 4 months to take, and you'd have an option to attend the morning meeting or afternoon meeting from 2 to 4:30, or an evening meeting from 6 to 8:30.
And, Mr. Chair,
Please proceed.
and who does this training?
Joe Kelly, Emergency Management Director for the state of Minnesota.
Oh, I think we've met him before.
Yes, you
We've had
have.
training, but it wasn't nearly this long.
No,
Is there a Cliff's Notes version, I'm wondering?
no. This is what I was given.
You look for feedback as to, is it a good idea?
Yeah,
And
if-
also, do you want feedback how many commissioners would be?
Yeah,
at this point that
it'd be nice to
they-
let Stephanie know.
Is
what
it just
your-
for commissioners or other people going to be involved?
Well, she'll also invite other communities, cities and stuff
Oh.
as well.
Elected officials, right?
And when did you?
Or city clerks.
February? you think?
Starting in February, March, April, May.
So this is not
gonna
only
make the first
commissioners in
two
other
meetings.
cities, but a county attorney?
Could be.
Any elected official?
Could be a city clerks,
Yep.
people who are involved in communicating with the public.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This training, Larry, would be held here.
It would be at the probably Emergency Operations Center.
Okay.
Yeah, when you say here, I mean in the county or in this
In
building?
in the county, there'd be no travel
There would be no travel.
anywhere involved. It would seem to me that one of the city representatives would probably be the most practical. So if,
If you guys are for it, I can just let her know, and then if you kind of just indicate, that if you'd be willing to attend.
I sense
I can,
everybody's nodding that this is.
I think there's value, there's some value there.
I'll let her know that. It's pretty positive. Okay.
Without a vote, I think you've got to,
I know-
go ahead, yeah.
All I need,
Good plan.
because I don't want to commit you that if something comes up between now and February, you may
Sure.
say, I can't take the time, or it conflicts with another meeting date. But if we can at least give that commitment that this would be a good opportunity.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank you. Well, thank her. She's putting this together. The second thing I want to remind the public is that we moved our December 7th county board meeting to December 2nd. This is for public information. We do have it posted and let people know that this is a special meeting date. So this is a reminder to the public that the December board meeting has been moved to December 2nd. That is also that evening at 6 p.m. we have our Truth and Taxation meeting as well. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, I have no other announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Kleindall. Any appointments from any commissioners or from administrator? Not? Okay, then we'll move on to our calendars. Anything to add to the calendar we don't have from anybody? If not, then I guess we'll give committee updates. And Commissioner Gardner, would you start?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have several for a change here. Because it's been rather busy the last week or so. The first thing that I want to visit about briefly is the Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership. We met yesterday, and the thing that I want to bring out of that is that the board decided to ratify the decision of the Finance Committee to reduce by $100,000 in total the amount required on part of the counties for participating in the partnership. For Candy Ohio County, that means that instead of a contribution of just under $71,000 in 2021, our contribution will decrease to just under $56,000. So it's about a $15,000 decrease in our contribution towards the partnership. Essentially, there are some discussions about just how much of a cushion the organization should be carrying. They discussed an additional $100,000, and still coming out of COVID at this time, determined that that would probably not be wise at this time. It may be something that gets revisited in the future. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. That's one. Had a chilly meeting yesterday of the Tourism Committee. We met out at the Candyland Farms, just west of town on Highway 40. I apparently did not get the memo that we were meeting outside. So,
Been there, it reminds me of the DNR.
the primary thing I wanted to bring out here is that the committee has determined that this year we will participate in 4 different sports shows. St. Cloud in February, Omaha, Sioux Falls show, and Northwest Sports Show. The latter 2 are actually on the same weekend, March 10th through the 13th. They will be looking for volunteers to man the booths at these different sports shows, and I believe what I've been told in the past is that once in a while, perhaps some of our board members have participated in those shows, and if you're interested, I'd certainly be able to share the dates with you and get back to Beth on that. So that's an item for information. I will leave the matter of the meeting we attended last night to Roger for his report. The last thing I have is State Community Health Services Advisory Committee met last Friday virtually. Several different items that I wanted to bring to our attention here. Commissioner Malcolm reported that COVID-19 numbers may be declining, but it was too early to tell. At that time, 62% of state residents had taken at least one shot of one of the various vaccines. Numbers are up for children. Again, the emphasis is on increasing vaccination rates and continuing mitigation efforts will hopefully control the spread of the Delta variant. Long-term care facilities, there was some information came out of that. Long-term care teams are tracking COVID-19 in long-term care facilities and among healthcare workers. Long-term surveillance efforts to track all residents and workers, maintaining a long-term care center database, including group homes and residential treatment facilities. The Delta variant is starting to decrease in long-term care facilities. It's not as prevalent as in the first COVID-19 wave, but it's still significant. Mitigation efforts within those communities include vaccination of residents and workers and stepping up and continuing infection control measures. Those are the things that are being proven to be working in those settings. Healthcare surge update. It is absolute that the staffing crisis that healthcare organizations are undergoing right now are absolutely driving the decrease in available ICU beds. There's nothing else driving that. There's very little additional pediatric capability or additional beds. It is an actual crisis. They're finding that patients who are awaiting ICU admission for various reasons, if they're waiting for 6 hours or more, that is absolutely increasing mortality rates. Regarding vaccine mandates by healthcare organizations, there's an open question as to whether or not there actually will be a large wave of resignations. I think it's a distinction without a difference, given that the staffing concerns right now are critical the way it is. Any further folks leaving healthcare are only going to exacerbate this crisis further. With that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Nissen.
Yes, I had only about 4 meetings since the last meeting. But we'll start with the EDC Joint Powers Board meeting we just had, and we had our audit from 2020, and we did very well in the audit, and that was one thing. The revolving loan fund has loaned out a couple of different loans. One is to Groom Zone, which is, I believe, a New London business. Roger could probably, that's a dog grooming and boarding deal. And the other one was Shears of Raymond is going to be changing ownership, and they have it was kind of interesting the way he applied, because it was like almost sounded like it was a fitness organization from an old business he had, but that's the name of his company, and he's going to take over the Cheers operation in Raymond. Other than that, I guess we talked about ARPA funds a bit and the broadband situation, which leads me right into the Tina Smith visit, which was very interesting and well attended. We had every provider there. We had people from Blandon organization. We had township officers, and of course Senator Smith. And she listened very intently. There's one driving aggravation I have, and it seemed to be shared by many people, not about kind of Senator Smith, but about the government's inability to, there's a Stafford Act now that's kind of a roadblock for us receiving funds to match funds that we are getting. So if we get the border-to-border grant, for example, we can't use our ARPA funds to cover our local costs, which means we get it's just, I think she got that message loud and clear, and we had some great input from some of the township officers as well. West Central Industries, pretty routine. And the Canada County Historical Society had their annual supper and a meeting after that supper. I was reelected chair. And, but the most important and interesting thing was they had a presentation by a fellow who ran the it's easy for me to say, Split Rock Lighthouse for 30 years. And he gave a really interesting report on how the function of that has changed over the years. And it was those of you who aren't members of Canada County Historical Society are missing out on some great programming. And this was one of them. So that's back to you.
Okay, well, I did have a follow-up question. You know, I didn't hear my name drawn for the.
Yeah, very sorry to hear that. Yeah. None of my people who purchased tickets from me won this year, but
You do need to turn them
It
in.
turns it in, yeah.
I did turn it in.
Okay, tough group here.
You want it audited?
Okay.
Marla Kubish won one of the. She works with me as a bus driver for her son, who's managing guy at Wilmer Bus. So, otherwise,
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Likely story, huh? Okay.
Commissioner Anderson.
Okay, yeah, I had several meetings as well at Pioneer Library System. We had a board meeting. It was just a Zoom meeting, pretty much just a regular meeting, nothing too spectacular, I guess, there. And then I met on the 27th. We had Drug Free Communities Coalition meeting. That's why I didn't go to the AMC District 6 meeting that morning, because I had to chair that DFC meeting that day, which was, I guess, pretty much routine, but since I was a new chair, I didn't think I could skip my first meeting as chair. Wouldn't look good. And then last Thursday, I had a UCAP meeting, which is United Community Action Partnership. And we had a presentation by Deb here this morning. And I'll just say one thing. They provide a lot of services, basically from A to Z, for families and people that have different kind of needs in this area, and which is a huge area. It isn't just Canada County. It's basically southwestern Minnesota, I would just say, kind of roughly. But and they provide a lot of great services, and Deb does a very good job at managing UCAP. So.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Emdak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to just tag on a little bit to what Commissioner Nissen said regarding our visit with Senator Smith. I think if every member of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate would have been able to be in that room and hear what we were saying, those roadblocks would be lifted tomorrow. Because
that's crazy.
They're just common sense solutions to fixing it. And now she's tasked with bringing it back and doing the convincing in her quarters. So, it was a great meeting. Everybody who presented, from the township supervisors to the EDC broadband members, were very eloquent in their presentation. I think Michelle Moratsky was then later called by NPR or some MinPost for more comments, and so it was a good meeting. The fall meeting, pretty much everybody was there. Our issues don't seem to be much different with county program aid. So we selected our district's 5 top priorities for the legislative platform. That doesn't mean that our 5 are automatically advanced, because they will pool all of them with all the other districts and come up with the top legislative priorities for next year. We had three of the representatives did join us, 2 by phone and 1 in person, and so we were able to share our concerns with them. I'll leave it at that. My AIS statewide advisory board for AIS last Thursday was likely my last meeting, as our last meeting of this year is our rescheduled board meeting. And then as I mentioned last time, I've asked Julie Ring to find somebody else to represent AIS, because I've been having too many conflicts recently. Last night, at the Community Health Board, Renville, Kansas County Community Health Board, we voted to annul the Citizens Advisory Board for that board. There was a Citizens Advisory Board, and it turns out there was a lot of overlap between those who actually serve on the Community Health Board and serve on the City Citizens Health Board Advisory Board. And so we decided that, as we all know as commissioners, it's not that easy sometimes to find citizens to serve on those advisory boards. And so it was decided to annul that Citizens Board, and we did so. Reminder to all of you, the annual meeting for the Association of Minnesota Counties is December 6th, 7th, and 8th, coming up real soon. So that's all I've got.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Nick. I'd like to add that for the public's information, you chaired the District 6 meeting. You did a great job, and thank you. But you forgot to mention really the highlight of the meeting was the meeting was in Gracefield, Minnesota. Yes, and somebody from our group who happens to be from that area, wore his leather jacket from his wrestling time, and it actually fit him.
Yeah, that was the highlight.
Yes, that's what I meant. Oh, yeah, that was the highlight. And I'm, of course, talking about
Congratulations,
Commander Kleinfeld.
There you go.
Yeah. And before I just mention a couple other things, I want to echo Commissioner Gardner's concern about getting vaccinated. And this is not a matter of mandates or not. It's just a matter of doing the right thing and following the science. And it's not just at trying to protect yourself, but protect other people. And the impact by not being vaccinated is so vast. Somebody was talking about, the hospitalizations and the staff and the impact, the economic impact and the lack of employees and stuff is connected in many areas with being vaccinated or not. And think of your family, think of your neighbors, think of your friends. Please get vaccinated. Also, I had several meetings, but we've already talked about them, the Prairie Lakes Youth Program. I've been very involved with them this past week. We had the open house and as well as the board meeting. And you pretty well got my update earlier, so I won't go on and on about that. I was also a member of the EDC board, and just with Commissioner Nissen reported quite well on that. Other than then, it was a very long meeting, I think well over 2 hours, and quite a long agenda. We meet quarterly, and it's almost enough information to meet more often than that, but I'm not going to suggest that. And we had our District 8 meeting. I pretty well covered almost everything I have there. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn the meeting? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to congratulate Administrator Kleindl on being able to fit into his high school letter jacket.
Thank you.
That's made me rather envious.
Yes, all of us, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I would just add, Mr. Chair, that the meetings when you have the audits, those can be very painful.
Yes, yes, they can.
There's a lot of information there.
Yep.
Kind of like Shaquille O'Neal's mother said when he was first born, it's a lot more than I was expecting.
Okay, and on that note, I hereby adjourn the Kansas County Board of Commissioners meeting.